do you think that this guy will be in there for long, or is there someone else queuing up behind him now?
There's someone else.
Mm-hmm.
This is merely an interim pope. If you examine the Benedicts of the past, they usually haven't been pope for that long. The previous Pope Benedict XV wasn't in for very long, and he was a pope that backed the IRA and the severing of Ireland from England.
Mm-hmm.
So we can ultimately assume that this pope will be anti-Reformation West. And this is what he's doing. He's pretending to be against the war now, when he's the one who started it. And he's pretending to be against the U.S. occupation there and blah, 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 when in fact he wants it. He loves it. His Jesuits started it. And, of course, the Pope rules both the leaders of Iraq, Iran, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, as well as the leaders of Britain and the U.S. They all go to him for his marching orders as to what they are to do, and the intelligence communities of those countries make sure that these presidents and kings do what they're told.
The idea of the New World Order, this is a political think tank, conception, basically. I don't know what to call it, but does this in any way tie together with the idea of world domination by the Jesuits and the Vatican?
Yes, the New World Order is nothing more than the reversion back to the Old World Order. And the Old World Order, as it existed in Europe, was feudalism. There was no middle class. There was illiteracy was everywhere. Disease was everywhere. The kings were subordinate to the Pope, and the countries were held in privilege granted by the Pope to that king. And that's what it's all going back to. The New Age movement is nothing more than a reversion back to the Pope's Dark Ages, of which the Jesuits want. In fact, there's a book written by a Jesuit coadjutor called The 13th Century, the Greatest of Centuries. Mm-hmm. And that's when Pope Innocent III was on the throne. He was the most evil, wicked, demon-possessed pope that I've ever read about. He murdered all the Albigensians. He hated Magna Charta from England. He defrocked Stephen Langdon, who had a hand in the writing of Magna Charta. This Pope Innocent III was a medieval Antichrist, but the real Pope, the real coming Antichrist, is yet future.
I see what you mean when you talk about that this is going to be a sort of a serfdom. The one angle I would lay on top of that, I guess, is kind of that there also is going to be a kind of a technological aspect to all of this, a control grid going in with the tracking and the potential shipping and all of this. But do you think that to some extent, some of the scarcity think that is being implemented now is a part of this? We could connect, of course, global warming and even depopulation into this. I don't know, would you do that at all?
Well, we have to remember that Malthus's concept of controlled population, Malthus was a Jesuit temple coadjutor, and the populations that were to be controlled and cut down were populations that were a threat to the Vatican. For example, Ethiopia was a threat to the Vatican, so we're going to depopulate certain of those black populations. Rwanda, the murder of 800,000 blacks, they were for the most part non-papal Christians. So it's not a murder according to race, it's a murder according to whether you're a heretic or not.
Yeah.
So that's what the depopulation is all about. Here in the U.S., we've had a medical inquisition going on in this country for over 100 years that's killed millions, more than all our wars put together. I call it the Holy Office of the Inquisition, Jesuit Medica. Cut, burn, and drug. When the medical profession never wants to get at the source of our problems, because ultimately they caused them with their mycoplasms and their creation of viruses, and so on.
Yeah.
So we have the destruction of populations in various and sundry ways, and in World War II and in the Cold War, those were determined to destroy certain populations. That's right, to weaken the nations so that their leaders would submit to papal rule. And the strong man on the block, the tough guy on the block to enforce the Pope's temple power has been what I call in my book the Pope's Holy Roman 14th Amendment corporate fascist American empire. That is the bully on the block. That is the policeman of the world. America has 725 bases in 120 countries. What's that all about?
Yeah.
I don't see that written in my Constitution. I quote the great General Smedley Butler, who said that American warplanes should not be allowed to fly any more than 500 miles apart beyond our shores and borders, and that no Navy can sail more than 200 miles beyond. See, the Protestant position of foreign policy is one of isolationism.
Mm-hmm.
We're not interventionists. We never should have been. The moment we went interventionist in World War I, it threw off the Monroe Doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
The Monroe Doctrine was put together by Protestants. We stay out of Europe, you stay out of Western Hemisphere. That's the biblical Protestant foreign policy that should be implemented. But oh no, we have the Jesuit foreign policy that we're going to attack and bomb Orthodox Serbia. Because the Jesuits hate the Orthodox people. Would like to kill them all.
Why the heck is that? I would guess that this is a a perfect relationship or a bond between those. But why is the schism there?
Between the Orthodox and the papacy?
Yeah.
The Orthodox Church refuses to acknowledge the Pope as the Bishop of Rome and as the head of the Church.
Okay. Oh, really? I didn't
right.
Sure what I know. I didn't even know that.
Refuses spiritual power and therefore refused to be governed by him politically.
Oh, really?
Serbia is the greatest example of an Orthodox people who refuses to be governed by the Pope. After all, they were mass murdered, some 700,000 to 800,000 of them mass murdered by the Franciscans and Jesuits as they were leading the Ustashi during World War II. Plucking out their eyes, ripping out the babies of pregnant women. It's just one atrocity after another. And this was only some 65 years ago. And they're going to do, and that's what they did to the Orthodox peoples of Russia during World War II. They were mass murdered because they refused to accept the primacy of the Pope. That's what that was about.
Wow, sheesh, my God.
And they did the same thing to the Protestants of Lithuania. I know a lady who escaped the Soviet invasion after World War II during World War II of Lithuania, when the Soviets deported 40,000 Lutherans to Siberia. When the Nazis came in, they killed the Jews. When the Soviets came in, they killed the Lutherans. The Jesuits controlling communism and Nazism at the top to effect their Council of Trent and their Fourth Vow.
Tell us about the Council of Trent. Enlighten us about that.
Okay. The Council of Trent was started in 1545 and ended in 1563. It was a council of the high archbishops and cardinals in Trent, Italy, whereby they got together and they set forth the doctrines of the Counter-Reformation. And some of those doctrines were, if anybody who believes in justification by faith alone and not by works, let him be accursed. If anybody believes that the host is not the literal body of Christ and the wine the literal blood, let him be accursed. It puts Protestants under 125 curses. And every pope since that time, including this one, has had to take an oath to uphold the Council of Trent. And the master of the Council of Trent, who later became the Jesuit general, Diego Lainez, who was also a racial Jew, for which reason it was discovered in the late 1500s, 1593, and as a result, Diego Lainez, the Jews were forever forbidden to be members of the Jesuit order until 1946, after World War II.
Okay, oh really? Why was that?
Because the Jesuits hate the racial Jews.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, why was this abolished as 1946?
Because the Jews, certain high Masonic Jews, proved themselves to be very useful to the Jesuit order, helping to kill the Jews of Europe and Eastern Europe, called the Pale of Settlement. And during this time, like Kastner and others, the Rothschilds, they all betrayed their own people into the hands of the Nazis. Number one, to kill as many Jews out of Europe as possible, because with all those Jews in Europe, you can't implement fascism. So they had to do it for that reason, and the next one is they allowed the children, the strong children, to survive so that the Masonic Jewish labor Zionists can use them to rebuild the nation of Israel, which in the eyes of the Pope is the Kingdom of Jerusalem, so that they can secure Jerusalem away from the Muslims to ultimately then build the third Hebrew temple for the Pope.